Welcome, brave souls, to Fear File Chronicles, your one-way ticket to spine-chilling stories and terrifying tales. Tonight, we'll be diving into the darkest corners of the human mind with the story, After the Fall, Part 4, penned by the twisted mind of Locked 334. Together, we'll explore the unexplained and face our deepest fears. But before we begin, if you enjoy trembling and terror, be sure to hit that like button. Share this video with your fellow fear fanatics and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the bell notification so you never miss an eerie episode. Your support truly means the world to us. So feel free to leave a comment below to join the Fear File Chronicles community. Now, without further ado, let's unravel the mysteries of the unknown together as we delve into tonight's fear-inducing story, After the Fall, Part 4. Dim the lights and prepare yourself for a chilling journey into the Fear File Chronicles. As winter receded, giving way to the first hints of spring, Collin felt a reluctant pull against the comfort of their newfound home. Life had become simpler in the harsh bite of winter. A clarity had come that only the fight for survival could bring. His reluctance was palpable. His eyes glazed over in a dreamlike reverie, until Tony broke through the comforting illusion. They both understood they could not remain there indefinitely, particularly now with the protective layer of ice and snow fading, removing their natural refrigeration. Wild game had become scarcer, a likely result of their disturbance of the previously untouched landscape. Preparations to leave their home were inevitable. Their pace had decelerated. The frenetic urgency had been replaced with a tranquil peace. For now, they had each other, and that was sufficient. Their journey to Wisconsin took far longer than it should have. But with the approach of summer and the allure of a substantial lake promised by their map, the delays didn't matter. The concept of a vacation, something so ordinary, yet elusive in Collin's childhood, tempted him now that Tony was by his side. Upon arrival, they settled into a spacious home nestled at the end of what was formerly known as Lewis Street in West Salem, Wisconsin. The backyard presented an expansive view across the serene waters of Lake Neshonoc. Collin remained at the beginning of the dock while Tony explored the end. An abandoned boat, still tethered to a post, bobbed gently on the surface. Tony returned, fishing poles in hand, his face alight with anticipation.
Look at this. We might be able to catch some dinner.
Yeah, maybe.
Collin replied with a warm smile.
Do you know how to fish?
Tony's face faltered.
Not really. My brothers took me once, but that was a long time ago. You can teach me, right?
Collin nodded, taking a fishing pole and following Tony onto the dock. Their fishing adventure was fruitless, the franks from their canned beans proving to be an ineffective bait. Nevertheless, they spent hours at the end of the dock, exchanging stories about their journey and future plans. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they returned home, hopeful they could find better bait hidden somewhere.
If we find nothing else, we can always dig for worms,
suggested Collin. Tony, bubbling with enthusiasm, asked,
Can we try again tonight?
Let's start early in the morning. I'm pretty hungry and we could both use some rest.
Though disappointment flashed across Tony's face, he understood. He began to unpack some canned food for their dinner, while Collin began exploring the house for potential resources, like blankets or fresh clothes. In the living room, Collin found Tony standing over their bags, holding the Bible his grandmother had given him. Tucked between the pages was a small family photograph. Pointing at the picture, Collin identified the faces.
That's my dad, my mom, me, and my brother, Danny.
You guys look happy.
Yeah, we were,
said Collin, taking the picture and staring at the faded image. The photograph transported him back in time to the Sunday morning it was taken. Collin, in his button-down shirt and red sweater vest, Danny looking nearly naval in his attire, and their parents holding them close, broad smiles across their faces. Though he hadn't wanted to take the picture that day, now he would give anything for another day just like it. A tear slipped from his eye as he carefully returned the photo to its place in the Bible. Recognizing Collin's pain, Tony handed him a bowl of beans. The rest of their evening was spent quietly, eating their dinner and making themselves comfortable in the living room. Tony's dreams were filled with the excitement of freshly caught fish, while Collin's mind was haunted by memories of his family and the cataclysmic event that shattered their world. The next morning, Tony woke Collin with a loud proclamation.
It's time to catch some fish.
All right, okay.
Collin muttered sleepily, slipping into his shoes. They found their way to the dock, and under the dim light of the encroaching dawn, they began fishing. As Tony dug in the mud for worms, Collin looked up at the hazed sky. It wasn't the bright summer he remembered, but it was something. Their morning was spent fishing and talking, with Tony carrying most of the conversation. That is, until a tug on Tony's line silenced him.
I got one.
Collin abandoned his pole to assist Tony. Together, they reeled in a bass, the largest either of them had ever seen. Tony held the fish up in celebration, causing both of them to break into laughter. Their successful catch promised a decent meal. Under Collin's guidance, Tony learned to descale and prepare the fish. A conveniently located fire pit in their temporary residence allowed them to cook their catch perfectly. As they enjoyed their seafood dinner, they shared more stories.
I caught my first fish when I was 5.
Collin recalled with a chuckle.
I was too scared to touch it when it flopped onto the bank.
Did you eat it?
No, my family wasn't big into seafood. It was more about spending time with my dad.
Tony paused, his gaze lost in the fire.
You talk like you and your dad didn't get along too well?
Collin carefully turned the fish on the spit they'd created.
Well, he was good at teaching me things, but he wasn't so good at showing how he felt. I don't think I ever remember him hugging me or telling me he loved me.
That sucks.
Yeah, I always told myself if I had kids, I would always tell them I love them. I don't think a kid should have to go his whole life not hearing that.
Collin confessed, his gaze still fixed on the fire.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Tony sighed. Collin recognized the sadness in Tony's voice. They had both come from a world starved of love. In the broken world they now inhabited, Collin felt an uncanny sense of gratitude for having found Tony. Despite the smog-filled air and ash that occasionally littered the ground, everything felt more manageable with Tony around. Privately, Collin prayed for the boy's safety, even though he was no longer certain if a benevolent deity was listening. They retired for the night, their bellies full of fresh fish and canned vegetables. While Tony slept, Collin stayed awake, his thoughts consumed by memories of his family. He pondered on Tony's speculative words about Danny possibly still being alive. His faith in the boy's instinctive wisdom made him wonder if his brother might indeed be alive somewhere. What would he say if he saw Danny again? He found a pen and started writing in the blank pages at the end of his Bible. The next morning, Tony watched as Collin tucked his Bible back into his bag.
What were you doing?
Collin deflected the question, implying he was merely checking his supplies. He suggested they take a swim, but Tony hesitated. The day was spent teaching Tony to swim, a rough process involving much splashing and laughter.
Thanks for teaching me to swim.
Tony gasped as he pulled himself from the lake.
No problem. Sorry it was so rough. It's the only way I ever learned.
Collin laughed lightly. Tony wiped the water from his face.
No, it's fine. Seems to be the only way to learn anything anymore. You get tossed into the deep end, and if you come up, you survive.
Collin had no response to that. It was painfully accurate. The whole world was the deep end now, and those left were either strong enough to keep swimming or lucky enough to float. He wondered which category he fell into and looked at Tony, contemplating the same.
Listen.
Collin began in a somber tone.
If something happens to me, remember everything I've taught you and survive, okay?
Tony looked taken aback by Collin's sudden seriousness. His eyes darted, unsure of how to respond when Collin's hands grasped his shoulders.
Promise me?
Collin's voice was grave.
I promise.
The rest of the summer was spent relishing their time by the lake. Collin was certain they had plenty of time to reach Canada before winter set in. By the time they decided to leave, Tony had become proficient at fishing and swimming. They'd even taken the rowboat out a few times to learn to navigate the water. It was an unforgettable summer, surpassing any memory Collin had from his childhood. His only regret was not being able to share it with Danny. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of tonight's chilling tale, After the Fall, Part 4, by the talented Lock 334. I hope you've enjoyed our descent into darkness and that you'll carry a piece of the Fear File Chronicles with you as you drift into uneasy dreams. If our story left you shivering and shaking, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who crave a good scare, and subscribe to the Fear File Chronicles for more haunting horrors. Remember to hit the bell notification so you're always among the first to know when a new nightmare awaits. As always, we appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sharing your fears and frights with us truly means a lot, so don't be shy to engage with our sinister community. Until next time, remember to embrace the darkness, for it is within the shadows that our most terrifying stories are born. Good night and stay scared.